Hi. Oh, I forgot to erase from the last one. We're moving on to the pancreas. We did all the major hormones that come out of the anterior pituitary. And now we want to take a look at some of the other glands that we have in the endocrine pathway. So this is the pancreas. The pancreas is a pig, but it's still your pal. So we call it our pig pal. What it has is it has endocrine and also exocrine functions. The pig versus the pal. Pig is endocrine. That means it releases hormones that enter into the bloodstream. Pal is exocrine. These are enzymes that are released from the pancreas that enter into the GI tract so that they can help to break down proteins, carbohydrates, and lipids. So let's see what pig-pal stands for. Pancreas secretes a big one, not the only thing that it secretes, but two big ones I want to play around with. Insulin and glucagon. Insulin gets it in, glucagon's for when it's gone. Let's have fun with this first before we start looking at the slides. So glucose is stored in the liver as glycogen. The blood has glucose or sugar levels, and the cell needs sugar in order for it to do its work. So what happens when I want to take glucose into the cell? Insulin is to take it in. So what happens to blood glucose levels? Well, imagine someone that has diabetes. What do they have to do after they eat their food? They inject themselves with insulin. So what happens when they inject themselves with insulin? Their sugar level goes down. So insulin takes glucose into the cell, so it lowers blood glucose. Well, glucagon is for when it's gone. So glucagon converts glycogen to glucose so that you have glucose available. So glucagon for when it's gone elevates blood sugar. So one more time. Let's start this all over again. If I have high blood sugar, what do I give to lower it? Insulin takes glucose into the cell. So blood sugar is now low. If blood sugar is low, what do I use? I use glucagon because it was gone. So now blood level for sugar goes back up. So sugar in the blood high, insulin, sugar in the blood low, glucagon, again and again. So it's negative feedback. It plays back and forth to maintain a certain level of sugar within the blood. Let's take a look at the pancreas. Here we go. This is the pancreas. It has a head. It has a body, and it also has a tail. So the tail points towards the spleen on this side. The head points toward, this is the small intestine, specifically the duodenum. So it's basically the curve of the duodenum. These are the different cells within the pancreas. So we had pig pal, right? Pig comes from islets of Langerhans, and pal comes from acini cells, which are endocrine, exocrine cells that excrete out of the body. Here we go. Does the pancreas have a dual personality? Yes, it does. It has pig or pal. It has endocrine and exocrine. What does pig stand for? Pancreas, insulin, glucagon. What does pal stand for? Protease, amylase, lipase. We cover that later with GI. Alpha and beta are big ones for cells and the hormones that they release. How I like to remember this is the word glucagon has an A in it. Glucagon. So alpha cells store and release glucagon. Beta, you better be insulin. So beta cells store and release insulin. And what is insulin used for? To take glucose or sugar from the blood into the cells. So what happens to blood sugar levels when you give insulin? It goes down. What hormone is released when blood sugar levels are too low? Glucagon for when it's gone. So what happens? I steal or convert glucose or glycogen to glucose. Glucose is now available in the blood, and your blood glucose levels elevate because of glucagon. Good job. Some other important cells and what they release. Somatostatin, we said, was growth hormone inhibiting hormone. It stops the release of growth hormone. PP, pancreatic polypeptide, don't worry about that. Epsilon releases ghrelin, and we learned that in GI, the stomach goes grrr. When you're hungry, you release ghrelin. Ghrelin triggers you to look for food, hunt for food, eat food. Which two pancreas hormones have opposing effects? Insulin for what? Taking glucose into the cell, and glucagon for when it's gone. What two major hormones control blood sugar levels? We said insulin and glucagon. Where are they from? Insulin is from beta cells. Glucagon is from alpha cells. How does insulin get stuff in? There are glucose transporters. GLUT stands for GLU, glucose, T, transporters. There are different numbers. The ones that we want to focus on are GLUT2 and GLUT4. Why and location? Because this is what we're going to study. So GLUT2, too sensitive. You are too sensitive to food. Too sensitive. GLUT2, I think of it as a sensor. So it is too sensitive. As soon as you eat food, the pancreas, there's a sensor that can detect it. So let's say you have food or sugar. Inside of the pancreas, you have a GLUT2 receptor. That acts on your beta cells. And your beta cells have what inside of them? Insulin. Now, insulin can be released. Insulin does what? Insulin takes glucose into the cell. So if I have insulin, what it does is it binds to receptor on the cell, insulin. It encourages the cell to make doors. These doors are called GLUT4. They are called GLUT4. And GLUT4 is basically a door or a transporter that allows the movement of glucose, which is your sugar, into the cell. Without insulin, can I make a door? Without a door in a room, can you get into the room? No. So you need insulin to, it's almost like a key, open the door. Door is now open. Glucose or you can get into the room. Where do you find GLUT2? It's a glucose sensor, and you find it in the gut. Here's what you can, if you want to study this, that's up to you. This is just for reference. GLUT4 found in insulin-sensitive tissues, such as skeletal muscle and adipose tissue. One of the things is skeletal muscle, if you exercise, you can actually increase the amount of glucose that's going into the muscle tissue without using insulin. Uncontrolled diabetes, you can look over that. And, you know, let's talk a little bit about it. So there's type 1 and then there's type 2. And here's how I remember the difference between the two. How many pancreas do you have? One pancreas. So if I injure the pancreas, can I release insulin? No. So type 1, one pancreas. If I can't release insulin, can I take sugar into the cells? No, I can't. Type 1 diabetes, insulin deficiency. Type 2, this looks like a receptor, right? So I said on a cell, I have a receptor, and the receptor holds insulin. So we still have to use insulin to get the sugar in. But the receptor now, if I break the receptor, I break the key, not the key, but I break the keyhole. Can I get into the room? Can I open the door? If I can't open the door, can I get sugar in? If I can't get sugar in because either I don't have the key or I broke the keyhole, I can't open the door, I will start to see the cell starving. Some of the signs of a cell starving in diabetes, so we call this diabetes mellitus. Sweetness in the urine, so diabetes mellitus. Type 1 is when I break or I cannot make insulin. Type 2 is when my sensor, my receptor is not sensitive to insulin. I cannot open the door in both cases. I will start to starve the cell. If it can't get glucose to break down for energy, what are the other two sources? I can either start breaking down fat, or I can start breaking down protein. Where does protein come from? Muscle. Where does fat come from? Fat. Well, what's the side effect, or what's the byproduct of fat production? They have these things called ketone bodies. Ketone bodies are acidic, so they worry that the blood becomes a little bit too acidic because of diabetic ketoacidosis. And you also see muscle wasting in someone that has, let's call it progressed diabetes. So response to threat, and that's it for this section. Let's take another break.